Welcome to the stories on Echoes of Revenge. Step into a world where love turns dangerous, revenge feels inevitable, and every story drags you deeper into the shadows of desire, betrayal, and the human heart. Let's begin today's story. The lake house had been mine for 8 years. Grandma left it to me specifically, not to the family, not jointly, just to me. The deed was recorded in my name alone on March 15, 2017. I'd paid every property tax bill, $8,400 annually, every insurance premium, $2,100 per year, every dock repair, $3,200 last summer alone. The house sat on 3 acres with 200 feet of shoreline on Lake Champlain. Current market value, $1.2 million. My sister Diane knew all of this. She'd been to the house dozens of times, always commenting on how I should share it more with the family, how Grandma would have wanted everyone to enjoy it equally. I'd smile and change the subject. The truth was simpler than her revisionist history. Grandma's will was crystal clear, and Diane had received the larger cash inheritance, $340,000 versus my $180,000, to balance things out. At Mom's birthday dinner last month, Diane mentioned she was renovating her kitchen. "It's going to cost $85,000, she announced to the table, cutting into her salmon. "But I'm pulling equity from an asset, so it's basically free money." She looked directly at me when she said it. Her expression, that slight smirk, the way her jaw tightened when she was hiding something, made my stomach drop. I called the county recorder's office the next morning. "I'd like to set up an alert for any activity on my property," I told the clerk. She explained they could email me if any documents were filed. I gave them my information. I felt paranoid. It felt necessary. 3 weeks later, the email arrived at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Document filing notification for 487 Lakeshore Drive. I opened the attachment with coffee halfway to my mouth. My hands went cold. Deed of trust. Refinance application. Loan amount, $85,000. Borrower name, Diane Patricia Morrison. My sister. My property. My forged signature in blue ink at the bottom. I called the title company listed on the document. "This is Marcus Morrison. Someone just filed refinance paperwork on my property without my knowledge or consent." The woman on the phone went quiet for 3 seconds. "Sir, that loan is already in underwriting. The closing is scheduled for this Friday at 2 p.m. "I am the sole owner of that property," I said, my voice eerily calm despite my racing pulse. "I did not sign any documents. I did not authorize any refinance. I need to speak to your fraud prevention department immediately." She transferred me. I spent the next 40 minutes on the phone with their investigator, emailing my original deed, my driver's license, my property tax receipts dating back 8 years. "Mr. Morrison," the investigator said finally, her tone shifting from skeptical to alarmed, "we're halting this transaction immediately and opening a formal investigation. This appears to be mortgage fraud. We'll be contacting law enforcement within the hour." I sat in my home office, staring at the lake house deed framed on my wall beside a photo of Grandma on the dock. She'd given it to me because I'd spent every summer there with her after my divorce, helping her maintain it, repairing the boathouse, listening to her stories about growing up during the Depression. Diane had visited twice in 10 years. Now she was trying to steal $85,000 of my equity for granite countertops and custom cabinetry. My phone rang. "Diane." I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom called. Then Dad. Then Diane again. I silenced my phone and opened my laptop. The ghost ledger had started as a joke in my head, a way to quantify the unquantifiable. But that afternoon I made it real. I opened a spreadsheet and titled it, "The Ghost Ledger. Emotional Costs of Family Exploitation." Entry 1. Every family gathering where Diane complained about my selfishness with the lake house while I paid $8,400 annual property taxes alone. Years, 8. Cost, self-doubt manufactured from generosity. Entry 2. Christmas 2019. Diane told her 3 kids Grandma forgot to leave them the house, that I somehow manipulated her. I was sitting 10 feet away. Cost, being cast as villain in fiction I didn't write. Entry 3. The summer's the first invited family up for free vacations, provided all food $400 plus per visit. Heard zero thank yous but complaints about Wi-Fi speed and water temperature. Visits, 12. Cost, generosity converted to entitlement. Entry 4. Every time Mom said you should share more, without acknowledging the $67,000 I'd invested in renovations. New roof, new dock, new septic system. Cost, invisible labor, invisible sacrifice. Entry 5. Diane's 40th birthday party where she announced she basically co-owned the lake house to her 15 guests. I corrected her once. She called me petty in front of everyone. Cost, truth treated as aggression. The ledger grew to 23 entries. Each one was a small theft of dignity, a paper cut that never quite healed. Together they formed a pattern I'd been too accommodating to name. Diane believed my assets were negotiable, my boundaries were suggestions, and my inheritance was hers to redistribute according to her revised version of fairness. Friday morning I drove to the county sheriff's office with a folder 2 inches thick. Detective Raymond Chin reviewed my documents with the methodical precision of someone who'd seen this pattern before. Mortgage fraud, he said quietly, making notes in careful handwriting. If she forged your signature, this is a Class D felony in Vermont. 3 to 5 years. The notary who authenticated that signature is also criminally liable if they didn't verify identity properly. The notary was probably her friend Jennifer, I said. She's mentioned her. They go to wine tastings together. Jennifer does mobile notary work. Detective Chin made a note. We'll be investigating that relationship very carefully. The investigation moved faster than I expected. The title company provided their complete file within 24 hours. The handwriting analysis took 72 hours. The forensic document examiner's report was damning. My signature on the Refinanced documents was a forgery, competent enough to fool a casual observer, but forensically distinct from my actual signature on file with the county. Pressure points wrong. Letter formations inconsistent. Definitely not my hand. The notary, Jennifer Caldwell, had notarized the document at a Starbucks on Route 7 without checking ID, without maintaining her journal properly, violating state law in 3 separate ways. She'd done it as a favor for a friend. That favor was about to cost her everything. Diane's first call came the day Detective Chin contacted her attorney. I answered this time, putting her on speaker in my quiet kitchen. Marcus, what the hell did you do? Her voice was shrill, panicked, nothing like her usual controlled tone. The loan fell through, the title company is accusing me of fraud, and now there are detectives calling my lawyer? I didn't do anything, Diane. You forged my signature on mortgage documents. That's mortgage fraud. It's a felony in Vermont. You did this. The house should be mine too. Grandma was manipulated in her final years. Everyone knows you influenced her. Grandma's will was written 8 years before she died. I interrupted, my voice flat and factual. She was sharp until the end. Her attorney confirmed it. You got the larger cash inheritance. $340,000 versus my $180,000. This was always the arrangement. This was always fair. You're really going to let them prosecute me? Your own sister? Over a house. I thought about the ghost ledger. I thought about the gambler's fallacy, the psychological trap where you keep feeding coins into a slot machine because you've already invested so much, convinced the jackpot must be coming. But slot machines don't work that way. They're designed to take. The house always wins unless you walk away. You tried to steal $85,000 from me, Diane. You forged legal documents. You involved a notary in a crime. You filed fraudulent paperwork with the county. You did this knowing exactly what you were doing. My voice was steady, almost gentle. I didn't let them do anything. You committed a crime. They're doing their job. She hung up. Mom called 3 minutes later, her voice tight with anger. Marcus, you have to drop this. He made a mistake. She's family. She has 3 children. She committed mortgage fraud, Mom. If I had tried to refinance her house without permission, would you be asking her to drop it? Would you be defending me? The silence stretched for 5 seconds. That's what I thought, I said and ended the call. The procedural machinery ground forward with beautiful, impersonal precision. The County Fraud Prevention Unit interviewed Jennifer Caldwell on Tuesday. By Thursday, her notary license was suspended pending full investigation. The state notary board discovered she'd notarized 17 documents for Diane over 3 years without proper ID verification. A pattern of negligence that destroyed her $60,000 per year mobile notary business overnight. The mortgage broker who processed the loan, Susan Hartley, faced an ethics review from the Vermont Banking Division. She'd failed to verify ownership properly, accepting Diane's verbal assurance without checking the actual deed records filed with the county. Her brokerage firm settled with the title company for $40,000 to avoid a costly lawsuit and reputation damage. Diane hired Thomas Whitmore, a criminal defense attorney charging $400 per hour. Whitmore reviewed the evidence. The forensic handwriting analysis, the notary violations, the clear deed records, my complete documentation. He advised her to negotiate a plea agreement immediately. Fighting this would cost $80,000 in legal fees she didn't have and end with certain conviction. The prosecutor offered a deal: felony mortgage fraud reduced to attempted fraud, 18 months probation, 200 hours community service, $15,000 restitution for my legal fees and investigative costs, and a permanent criminal record. My parents called it excessive and vindictive. I called it accountability and consequences. Diane's kitchen renovation never happened. The contractor she'd already hired, who'd ordered custom cabinets based on her deposit, sued her for breach of contract. The judgment: $8,500 plus $3,200 in attorney fees. Her credit score collapsed from 740 to 580. The attempted fraud conviction made her ineligible for any mortgage refinance for 7 years minimum. Her homeowner's insurance premium increased 40% when they learned about the conviction. 6 months later, I sat on the dock at the lake house watching the September sunset turn the water copper and gold. A loon called across the still water. The air smelled like pine and approaching autumn. My phone had been quiet for weeks. No family calls. No guilt trips. No demands to be reasonable or think about the children. The silence felt different now. It didn't feel like punishment or abandonment. It felt like peace. It felt like freedom. It felt like clarity. I'd spent years treating my family like a slot machine, feeding in emotional coins, patience, generosity, accommodation, convinced that eventually the jackpot of unconditional love would arrive. But love isn't a payout. It's not something you win through sufficient sacrifice. Real love doesn't require you to diminish yourself. It doesn't steal your equity and call it sharing. It doesn't forge your signature and call it fairness. My lawyer had sent me the final paperwork last week. The case was closed. The restitution payment had cleared. The property deed remained in my name alone, now with an additional recorded document, a declaration of sole ownership, explicitly noting sole ownership and prohibiting any future claims. I pulled out my phone and opened the ghost ledger one last time. At the bottom I added a final entry. Entry 24. The day I stopped treating my boundaries as negotiable and my inheritance as communal property. Cost: a family that never valued me. Gain: everything that matters. The loons are calling. The water is still. And I am finally completely free. The account was closed. The balance was zero. And I was finally in the black.